Welcome, listener, to a deep dive that explores a side of San Francisco you likely haven't seen in the headlines. When you think of San Francisco, images of tech giants, rolling fog, or maybe even recent news about urban challenges might come to mind. But consider this. For its size, San Francisco is actually one of the safest cities on the West Coast, reporting a remarkably low 35 homicides for 850,000 people in 2024. That's statistically safer than many European cities. Yet beneath that surface, a brutal and often hidden conflict has, well, simmered for decades, ultimately leading to dozens of murders and the severe erosion of an entire neighborhood's community.
It's a striking contrast, isn't it? A city broadly perceived in one light, yet experiencing a localized reality that's profoundly different. This deep dive into the sources you've provided really helps us understand how deeply entrenched, hidden conflicts can exist even in seemingly peaceful urban landscapes. Our mission today is to, peel back the layers of this particular conflict centered in San Francisco's historic Fillmore district. We'll unpack its history, understand the devastating human cost, and explore what this means for the community caught in the middle.
So let's unpack this then. Our sources indicate that Fillmore wasn't always a place of such conflict. Can you paint a picture of its earlier days?
Absolutely. To grasp the full scope of this, we need to start with its history. The Fillmore was once celebrated as the Harlem of the West. After World War II, many black families who'd moved from the Deep South for shipyard jobs chose to remain in the Bay Area. Because of severe redlining, these discriminatory housing policies that, restricted where black families could live, they were largely funneled into specific areas. And the Fillmore blossomed into this vibrant, prosperous hub. It was a place teeming with fine restaurants, popular jazz clubs, and just a profound sense of community. Our sources describe it as a place where you could, quote, walk down the street with $100 hanging out your pocket and nobody would touch you.
Wow.
Yeah. People arrived with tremendous skills. Carpenters, mechanics, barbers, making it a truly cohesive social place.
That sounds like a remarkably thriving community. So how did this start to unravel?
Well, this is where we see the unforeseen consequences of urban planning. The federal government's urban renewal initiatives programs often criticized for their disruptive impact.
Right, disruptive is putting it mildly sometimes.
Exactly. They tragically dismantled this community. Beautiful Victorian homes, thriving businesses, just forcefully torn down, replaced with housing projects. Many original residents, they really had no choice but to stay. And the once vibrant area sadly became, as some sources describe it, a place marked by severe poverty, drug dealing, hustling, and the earliest seeds of these territorial disputes.
And this truly set the stage for generational conflicts, didn't it?
Indeed it did. The young generation in the Fillmore, they initially coalesced into one large crew. Over time, this Fillmore crew developed this decade-long significant conflict with the entire Hunter Point area, which is way on the opposite side of the city. This led to countless murders.
Jeez.
Fortunately, leaders from both sides eventually stepped in, intervened to end that larger citywide conflict. However, the next generation sparked something arguably worse. The very first internal conflict within the Fillmore itself.
An internal war within the same neighborhood. That's just heartbreaking, especially right after they'd managed to resolve a citywide dispute.
Precisely. The massive neighborhood crew fractured. It became uptown versus downtown, with Fillmore Street serving as the dividing line. This made the conflict incredibly personal because, as our sources highlight, everyone involved grew up together. Often in the same social circles, same gangs even, it transformed the area into what was described as a killing zone in the late 90s and early 2000s. Former best friends just knocking each other off relentlessly.
And then adding another profound layer to this tragedy came gentrification.
Yes. And this trend, it had lasting effects on future generations. The city began tearing down projects like Hayes Valley, Attica Kroll, Chopper City, replacing them with new buildings. While some original residents were allowed to return, many had to relocate. The Fillmore's public housing units, they plummeted from 5,000 to just 1,500.
That's a huge drop.
Massive. The demographics shifted dramatically. Between 1990 and 2005, the neighborhood went from being 75% black to just 11%. New residents, often, hipsters, tech workers, moved in, inadvertently obscuring the area's violent past.
Okay, so with the old turf wars disrupted by gentrification, did that bring an end to the conflict, or did it just change shape?
Unfortunately, no, it didn't end. The conflicts continued, but they evolved, like you said. By the mid-2000s, the Fillmore saw the emergence of these distinct identities tied to individual housing projects or small sections. Groups like Eddie Rock, Knockout, or KO Chopper City, also called CHOP, the Mac, Grove Street, Hayes Valley, known as the Zone, all emerged as separate, often rival factions.
Wow, so many groups in such a small area.
Exactly, all existing within just a few blocks of each other, and most had a long history of violence already.
And at the heart of this new landscape, our sources seem to point to Eddie Rock as a central player, is that right?
That's what the sources describe. Eddie Rock as the bullies of the area, frequently initiating conflicts. They particularly targeted CDP Central to Divisadero players, a section that didn't even have a public housing project. CDP members typically grew up in, well, wealthier homes, multi-million-dollar houses, according to the source. This led the rest of the Fillmore to see them as silver spoon babies. But CDP ran one of California's largest drug operations. Their focus was more on financial success, being rich rather than, street toughness.
But their wealth didn't stop Eddie Rock from picking a fight.
Allegedly, no. Eddie Rock started a beef for no reason, which led to the deaths of 4 CDP members. This forced CDP to undergo this dramatic transformation, shifting from hustlers to certified demons. They became, quote, certified hitmen who retaliated against Eddie Rock. It sounds like a movie plot, honestly.
It really does.
By the mid-2000s, Eddie Rock found itself in bloody war with nearly every other section in the Fillmore. They became the black sheep of the family.
And the human toll from this era, the numbers you mentioned earlier, are just staggering.
Yeah, the true impact of these localized conflicts was devastating, particularly for the black community. In 2007, being a black resident in San Francisco was apparently 10 times more deadly than in Los Angeles. San Francisco, with about 45,000 black residents, had 85 black homicide victims that year. For context, LA, with 400,000 black residents, had 94.
10 times. That's unbelievable.
It starkly illustrates the incredibly serious and disproportionate nature of these neighborhood conflicts.
With that kind of bloodshed, law enforcement obviously had to step in.
Yes. The district attorney at the time, Kamala Harris, took decisive action. She even sued these specific neighborhoods, Eddie Rock and the CHOP. Police initiated serious investigations. It became illegal for individuals from these groups to post up in front of the projects. That basically allowed police to more easily search and arrest individuals. By 2012, the streets in the Fillmore were largely quieted down, with dozens of members from CDP, Eddie Rock, CHOP, KO all incarcerated. This brought much-needed peace, sure, but it also left a whole generation of Fillmore fatherless babies.
Okay, so after those indictments, things calmed down for a bit. What happened next? Our sources talk about the community stepping up, one person in particular.
Right, and this really highlights the resilience and sense of responsibility within a community facing such hardship. One man, Lamar Williams, known as Chi, dedicated his life to guiding youth away from the streets. He consistently checked in with them, offered support, coached track and football at Mission High School, basically keeping kids busy with sports off the streets. He notably stepped up to mentor his 2 nephews, Stacy and Lapril Gilton, whose parents were actually swept up in that earlier CDP indictment.
And those nephews, they went on to become quite prominent, didn't they, through music?
They did. Stacy and Lapril, using their rap names Lil Ye and Lil Pete, achieved instant success as rappers between 2015 and 2016. They capitalized on this quiet period, generated huge buzz in the Bay Area. Their music became really popular among young people. While they didn't explicitly represent a specific project, they were associated with members of the Chop, Grove, and Hayes sections.
But this calm, it wasn't destined to last, was it? A new rapper emerged and apparently stirred things right back up.
Sadly, no. A new generation of conflict started brewing with the emergence of this teenager named Toriano Carpenter, known as Dex Kruger. Raised in Eddie Rock, Dex was described as a wild dude, even at 12 years old, stealing pizzas, causing trouble. He was also, by all accounts, an extremely talented rapper who quickly released these aggressive, really disrespectful songs, openly dissing rivals, heating up old conflicts that had maybe cooled down.
So he was actively fanning the flames.
Actively. He rejected any notion of Fillmore unity, stating, quote, "I don't feel we part of Fillmore. We beefing with everybody." This cemented Eddie Rock's isolation. It drew people from across the Bay Area to Eddie Rock, but specifically not from other Fillmore sections.
And this antagonistic stance, it quickly led to violence again, didn't it? A specific incident.
Yes. The quiet period ended abruptly, fall of 2019. In a pivotal moment, a short man from Eddie Rock, wearing a white hoodie, allegedly jumped out of a white Nissan Altima in the CHOP area, fired at members who were just, posted up there. Javon Lee, known as V's, was hit over 5 times, but miraculously survived.
Wow.
This incident, it undeniably kicked off the next generation of beef. It forced everyone in the Fillmore to choose sides again. You were either with Eddie Rock or you were allied with the CHOP and its partners. The Zone, Grove Street, and even Lil Ye and Lil Pete got drawn in.
So once those lines were drawn again, the violence just exploded. And our sources show it wasn't just contained to San Francisco this time.
Indeed. Because many residents had already moved to other cities years prior due to gentrification and other factors, these conflicts continued in their new locations. This significantly increased murder rates across various Bay Area cities, not just SF. For example, November 6, 2019, Dex's big homie, Desirio, known as Money Man, an alleged pioneer of bipping, which is like organized car theft.
Right, heard that term before.
Yeah, he was shot and killed outside a friend's house in East Oakland. This was a major loss for Eddie Rock.
And then there was that truly heartbreaking incident you mentioned where an innocent person got caught in the crossfire, basically.
Yes, that tragically illustrates the collateral damage. January 2, 2020, Javon Lee, V's, from the Chap, the one who'd survived being shot before, along with his friend Byron Lee, they stole a laptop from Shou Zhang. Zhang was a talented research engineer visiting from China, just sitting at a Starbucks in Oakland. When Zhang chased them, he was tragically hit by their getaway car and killed. Both men faced up to 10 years, though Byron's sister pleaded his innocence, saying he wasn't the driver.
Just awful. And the violence continued to claim lives from both sides in the following months.
It did. Just months later, March 2020, Eddie Rock member Tay Thumps was killed. But then came an incident that profoundly shook the entire Fillmore community, circling back to Lamar Chi Williams, the community leader.
But this is the one that's particularly tragic because Chi was trying so hard to steer kids away from this life, but he became a victim himself.
Exactly. Chi had taken Deary Hampton under his wing. Deary was this incredible athlete from Eddie Rock, but with a, hard street background. Chi coached him in football and track, desperately wanted Deary to fulfill his athletic potential, stay out of the streets. Deary was a star athlete in high school, but he didn't get Division I offers, turned back to street life, ended up getting a prison sentence. On November 18th, 2020, just a year after his release, Deary and his young friend Kyotas allegedly set up and tried to rob Chi at his apartment in Hunter Point. Chi defended himself. Tragically, both Chi and Deary lost their lives in the shootout.
Devastating. The mentor and the mentee he tried to save, both gone.
A profound tragedy for the entire Fillmore, for San Francisco, really. She was remembered as a community leader, the heartbeat of Fillmore, always trying to guide people right. This loss cut deep, especially for his nephews Lil Ye and Lil Pete, and it instantly ignited this fierce desire for revenge. Retaliation was promised. Just 9 days later, Eddie Rock's Dedrick Tucker, known as Dada Win, was killed in Oakland.
And then there's that truly complex, almost unbelievable story about the CHOP member, Tian Bratcher.
Yeah.
Killed over something seemingly unrelated.
Yeah, it underscores the general danger of the lifestyle. March 17th, 2021, Tian Bratcher, 33, from the CHOP, met a girl from Instagram in Oakland. He drove them out to Castro Valley, apparently saying he wanted to avoid people hating on me. What he didn't know was the girl's boyfriend, Louis Arby, was tracking her phone location.
Oh, no.
Arby arrived, found Keen and a girlfriend in the car, opened fire. Arby then stole Tian's chain, wallet, gun, fled with the girlfriend. They were pursued by CHP, escaped into Oakland, later encountered by Berkeley police, but got away due to a no-chase policy.
A no-chase policy.
Yeah, policy some departments have to limit high-speed pursuits to prevent accidents. Anyway, they were eventually arrested 3 months later after a warrant search at Arby's grandma's house turned up the weapons. Louis Arby is now facing life.
An absolutely insane story on its own.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow it got tangled back into the main beef.
It did, tragically. Even though Eddie Rock had nothing to do with Tian's death, Dex Kruger apparently started clowning his death, publicly mocking it online. This infuriated Tian's closest childhood friend, Foes, from the Zone, and that just escalated the war even further.
The casualties just kept piling up after that, didn't they?
Relentlessly. September 15th, 2021, Stephen Mitchell, Saint, from Eddie Rock, killed outside his girlfriend's apartment in North Vallejo. 2 days later, Baxter Bradley, known as Haiti, from Grove Street and Lil Ye's cousin, targeted and killed while riding his bike in his neighborhood. Major loss for the 468 side, as they called it. A week after that, September 24, Break It Off, a talented, up-and-coming rapper from the Zone killed in the Mission District.
And then, listener, one of the most horrific incidents in this entire deep dive involving an innocent toddler.
Yeah, this is where the direct impact on the wider innocent community became just agonizingly clear. November 6, 2021, exactly a month after those previous losses. Eddie Rock members Kiki and Johnny were leaving a known Eddie Rock hangout in deep East Oakland. They were pursued by CHOP members, including rapper Chop Low, in an Infiniti car. On Interstate 880, traffic jams up near the Bridge Toll Plaza. Choplo allegedly ups an ARP, meaning he pulls out an AR-style rifle and starts firing at Kiki's car. Miraculously, no gang members were hit in that car. But tragically, an innocent toddler named Jasper Wu, just weeks away from his second birthday, was shot and killed while sitting in his car seat in a nearby, uninvolved vehicle.
Unbelievable. The public outcry over Jasper Wu's death must have been enormous, and it led to controversy with the DA.
Huge outcry, immense pressure on Oakland police. An incarcerated Eddie Rock member, Ronnie Mitchell, or ABR Fifth, apparently inadvertently gave away critical details on a recorded jail phone call. That led to the arrest of Chop Low and Ivory Bivens, charged with Jasper Wu's murder. And yeah, this sparked a major debate because Oakland DA Pamela Price decided to reduce their charges, removing the possibility of life without parole or the death penalty. She cited historical racism around the law and brain science about underdeveloped brains in young adults. The defendants were under 25. That decision provoked intense public outrage. Protests demanding justice for Jasper, former prosecutors calling the move insulting. It became a huge political issue.
Even after that horror, the violence didn't stop. Dex, in particular, seemed to almost revel in it.
He did, according to the sources. Just 3 days after Jasper Wu's death, Rose from the Zone was killed. Later that summer, Carlos from the Zone also lost his life, both unsolved. But Eddie Rock members, especially Dex, publicly clowned these deaths online. Dex recorded an entire music video inside the Chops housing projects, taunting them. If y'all's posted outside, you'd know you'd be dead. He even posted a video of himself scooting through the Chop, flashing a 30 stick, a gun with an extended magazine. Just pure disrespect.
In that kind of direct taunting, it was bound to provoke a direct response.
Absolutely. Phil Mofoley from Grove Street immediately dropped a direct diss song in response. Clowning all the Eddie Rock members one by one and dissing all of their dead homies, this was exactly the kind of reaction Dex seemed to want to thrive on. On August 31st, 2022, Dex dropped his own song, Ambitious, directly addressing Phil Mofoley and the rivals' recent losses. But the most inflammatory part, apparently, came from Paris Moffat, known as Money P, on the second verse. Money P wasn't really known for street stuff himself, but he was the son of an original Eddie Rock rapper and had this reputation for sleeping with rivals' girlfriends. In Ambitious, Money P directly dissed Haiti, the guy killed on his bike, and the music video even allegedly reenacted the scene.
Oh, that's crossing a line.
A big one. The song quickly hit 100,000 views, but as our source points out, dropping it was not the smartest decision.
And we see the consequences almost immediately.
Precisely. Exactly 1 week later, September 6, 2022. Rivals in a tinted car drove down the alley in Eddie Rock where members were shooting dice. 2 masked men jumped out with AK-style rifles, started firing. Eddie Rock members returned fire, but Dex Kruger was caught in the crossfire. He was Eddie Rock's main rapper, their hood representative. SFPD offered a $50,000 reward. The source explicitly warns, when you diss people's deceased loved ones, sometimes they see it as a cause to, retaliate.
Yeah. And the tragedy continued for Eddie Rock, affecting Money P directly, just days after Dex was shot.
Just 2 days later, September 8, 2022, doctors announced Dex had died from his injuries. After hearing the news, Money P left SF General Hospital, headed to Oakland. He didn't know he was being followed. He was shot on Broadway Street, rushed back to the hospital. He survived, but was tragically paralyzed. Heartbreaking for his mother, his father, Playa P, who had already seen one son locked up, another killed. Money P began this long, difficult recovery journey at the Lake Merritt Healthcare Center, trying to learn to walk again.
But even with Dex dead and Money P paralyzed, the rivals weren't satisfied. The pursuit continued.
No, the cycle was relentless. November 4th, 2022, Kiki, the Eddie Rock member from the I-880 freeway shooting, was killed at a friend's hangout in East Oakland, killed by someone known as 50 from the Chop. And then, in maybe the most shocking, coldest incident of this entire deep dive, the rivals found out where the paralyzed Money P was staying.
The sheer brutality here and the determination, it's hard to fathom.
On March 11, 2023, just after midnight, a crew of rivals arrived at the Lake Merritt Healthcare Center. They found a back door open. They entered the facility, went room to room, located Paris Moffat, Money P, asleep in his bed. They shot and killed him in his hospital room.
In his hospital bed.
Yeah. His mother stated he did not deserve to go that way. A heinous crime. The facility faced heavy criticism. Lack of staff, lack of security, that unlocked back door. Money P's father is now suing the facility for negligence and wrongful death. This was a devastating loss for Eddie Rock, and it allegedly prompted other sections like KO and Zooblock to join forces with Eddie Rock for revenge.
And that revenge, fueled by Dex and Money P's deaths, led to yet another tragic loss for the other side.
Yes, June 5, 2023. A robbery crew, described as close friends of Dex and Money P, sought revenge on anyone from the zone. They used a stolen Dodge Hellcat, this high-performance car. Police had actually been tracking this specific Hellcat for weeks. It had been used in multiple robberies, gas stations, a taqueria, burglaries. Police were tracking it, trying to build a bigger case.
But that decision had consequences.
It proved costly. The Hellcat crept up to an alley on Rose Street where 8 zone members were gathered. 3 guys hopped out, opened fire. 7 managed to escape. But 25-year-old Uera Blaylock, a former star football player at Mission High, and another protege of Chi, ironically, was killed.
And this incident really highlighted the potential unintended consequences of police tactics, that balancing act between gathering intelligence and intervening immediately.
Exactly. It raises that difficult question. The Hellcat was later found parked on Eddy Street, back in Eddie Rock territory. Officer Kevin Book, who placed the tracker, connected with homicide. He had the tracking data, but didn't know who was in the car during the shooting. However, the gang unit, just by examining social media, found an Instagram picture. KO and Zoo Block members standing right in front of the stolen Hellcat. That led to 4 arrests.
So much bloodshed, so many lives lost over just a few years in such a small, concentrated area. Our sources suggest the beef just banned. It almost had to burn itself out.
That's right. Over 5 or 6 years, the Fillmore projects have, quote, basically wiped each other off the map. In this very small neighborhood, over 25 people lost their lives. Over 50 went to prison. The sources state there are only like a handful of people left, maybe 5 to 10 guys in each section. It's decimated.
But even with Eddie Rock nearly, as the source says, extinct, the hunt wasn't entirely over.
Not quite. March 3, 2025. YT Stunts, an Eddie Rock rapper, Dex's best childhood friend, was killed. On the exact same block where Dex had died. A truly tragic echo. And then a near tragedy for the other side, just 2 days later. Lil Ye was shot multiple times during a robbery attempt in a Los Angeles studio. He apparently flatlined twice during surgery, but thankfully survived.
And our deep dive concludes with one final grim chapter, closing a specific loop.
Yeah, the rivals were still seeking revenge for Lamar Chi Williams' death, going back years. On April 14th, 2025, Lotus Martin, known as Lo One of the individuals involved in that attempted robbery and murder of Chi's, was killed in the Tenderloin district. Lowe had only been released from prison in 2025, despite technically facing double murder charges related to Chai's death. His death was described as the ultimate nail in the coffin for Eddie Rock, and hopefully maybe for the beef as a whole. #tag outro.
So after walking through all of that, all these sources, what stands out most to you about this deep dive into the Fillmore's unseen war? What's the takeaway?
Well, when you connect it to the bigger picture, it's just this stark illustration of how these cycles of violence, they get fueled by historical injustices, right? Redlining, urban renewal, then combined with internal conflicts, poverty, lack of opportunity, it can lead to this devastating self-destruction. Over 25 lives lost, over 50 people imprisoned from a tiny neighborhood in just 5 years. And that's on top of the gentrification, the displacement. It really forces you to ask that question the source raises. What was the point of all this beef?
It's a chilling thought. The Fillmore, already so transformed by gentrification, could effectively be completely gone in 5 or 10 years, according to these sources. Yeah. So few people left for those original ties.
Exactly. People were killing and dying over hoods that in 10 years most definitely will not exist.
This deep dive, looking into a history that often goes completely unreported in the mainstream news. It serves as this powerful, tragic reminder of the profound human cost, the cost of these cycles of violence, and just how urgently communities need to find ways to break them. A truly powerful and, somber thought to leave you with, listener. This deep dive has offered a raw, intense look at a hidden history. We hope you gained some surprising insights, maybe a deeper understanding of the complex forces at play within one of America's most iconic cities.
Yes, only thing that I'm worried about, punch one of these pussy ass niggas in they mouth, then they film and they'll upload it. Suckers do anything for that clout. They'll trick you out of your position if you ain't gained up and you ain't here watching out. Internet bloggers, internet gangsters, who the snitches? I can't tell. On the dead homies and enemies podcast, the only podcast that I know won't tell. But I ain't tripping, I just pay attention to my own little business and I get the smell. I'm in another state, making another plate. Big plat place on my state. A plush hotel, just counting mail. I do this shit and I do it well.